Alright, let's do this! Gyojin Karate! Berry Brick Fist! Huh! See, this is Barry, who is a brick, and this is my fist. Barry, brick, fist. So, we'll see how this goes. Normally with Fishman Karate, at least with Jinbe's techniques, they could take a couple minutes, maybe an hour tops to really take effect. So, maybe by the end of this video, Barry will just begin to crack and then shatter into 1,000 pieces. Alright, well, we'll see here. Alright. Man, remember that scene when Jinbe and Crocodile and Luffy, they were busting through Impel Down, and they get to level 4, and then, like, they have that whole armada of guards just stationed by the door, just like... They're crying because they know what's coming up the steps. They know they got 2 warlords and Monkey D. Luffy busting out of the place, and they're like, we could do this, Bill. We could do this, Bob. And the Crocodile he destroys the door with his sand powers, storms through, dehydrates everybody into mummies. Luffy's doing his Gamu Gamu no crap all over the place. Jinbe, he doesn't need anything that extravagant. He doesn't need a devil fruit. He doesn't need to be jumping off the walls like Luffy. All he needs is one single punch and a very stern face. That's about 50% of Jinbe's techniques. He's got to shoot that very intimidating, just stoic glare, you know? So he just walks out and is like, Gyojin Karate! Whew! Doesn't even hit anybody, just punches the air. And what happens is there's a delayed effect. It takes a little while, but like the shockwaves from that punch begin to like warp all of the guards around it. Like a guard will be standing right next to Jinbe. They're afraid to even go near him because they know who he is. They know he's one of the 7 warlords. They know he's the Knight of the Sea, this master of Fishman Karate. So they're smart enough not to just jump him. You know, they're not like, oh, he just threw a punch at the air, he's stupid. So they're waiting off, but they wait like a few seconds and their bodies just begin to like and they just start being pushed back by this invisible force in the air, like a ghost is like sumo wrestling them, and just like, wait, I can't, and they just get flung to the other side of the room. And so, yeah, that's Jinbe. I think that's actually the first time in the story we actually saw him bust out his moves. And just like, yeah, okay. Now, not all of his techniques are like that. I think that one was just like, I'm gonna use this delayed shockwave attack just to show you whippersnappers how it's really done. But no, he has more traditional techniques that, you know, take effect when he punches people, okay? So today we're going to be talking about Gyojin Karate, or Fishman Karate, along with Fishman Jujutsu, because, or Jiu-jitsu, because there's different kinds there. There's also Merman combat, so we're going to delve into that. Not really that much into Merman combat. We don't know much about it. We haven't seen it be used that much. We've definitely seen Fishman Karate used a lot more, all the way back during Arlong Park by Karubi, one of Arlong's henchmen. That was the first person to display it. But of course, ever since Jinbe got into the story, we've seen a lot more techniques from him and Fishman Jiu-Jitsu and everything. So yeah, let's go into that. Has anybody ever taken a karate or a jiu-jitsu class? I want to know this up front so when I make some horrible mistake, I know that there's people that can correct me in the comments. When I was a little kid, I was bullied when I was in elementary school, and my parents threw around the idea of maybe taking karate classes. My rebuttal to that was the same reason why I dropped out of baseball growing up. You want me to come home from school after a hard day of learning multiplication tables and then go do something else? Whoa, that's way too much work for second grader teching. You know, you go to school, you come home, and you play video games all night. That's the rule. I'm okay with the school part, but you're pushing the envelope here. So I didn't go into karate. I've known a few people that have. I do have a black belt, though. See? Got a black belt right here. Belt that's black. Awesome. Okay. And who needs karate anyway when you have a baseball bat? You don't need a karate. I have a baseball bat, all right? It trumps your karate crap. All right. So, no, of course, it's pretty cool. I wish I kind of would have learned it. It would have been neat to know. But anyway, all right. So, his Fishman karate, let's start with that because we've seen that a lot in the story, all right? The most standard techniques we see involve some sort of level of brick breaking, okay? And this is, you know, a reference to, like, karate masters. You know, they take their fists and they tighten it harder than steel, like Bruce Lee or something, and they just, boom, and they punch down a bunch of tiles or bricks. You know, does not look like a safe thing you should try at home, but this is in reference to that, okay? So the number of bricks, like, increases as the story goes on. I think Karubi used the 100 brick fist against Sanji, punched Sanji right in the stomach and sent him flying across Arlong Park. But it hurt Sanji, but he had that moment where I think he got back up and he's like, well, if that punch is supposed to be like 100 bricks, I guess the old man's kicks are like 300 bricks, you know, basically saying that he got got way more of a beating from Zeph over the years from Karubi. So then you have Jinbe, though, and he's upping it to like 5,000 bricks. I think there was a 7,000 brick one in there. I'm sure if Jinbe shows back up at Wano, no, when Jinbe shows back up at Wano, he's gonna go up against a calamity like Jack and like 10,000 brick fist or 100,000 brick fist and just blow right through freaking Jack or all opposition. That would actually be really cool if like the beast pirates are beginning to like attack everybody at once. Like there's so freaking many of them and they're like, oh man, we're gonna fight through this wave. It's gonna take forever though. And then Jinbe just jumps out of the water and he's like cracking his knuckles and is getting his webbed fingers ready to go. And he's like, nah, you don't need to worry about that. And he just does like two 5,000 brick fists with both hands and just boom, and then just the resulting shockwave just causes all of the, it's like dominoes, just all of the beast pirates like fodder soldiers just all fall down at once and then just walk over them to the main threat. All right, that would be pretty neat actually, right? Man, I can't wait for you, Jinbe. When you show up, it's gonna be cool. I'm waiting for it, buddy. Don't let me down here. So there's more stuff obviously with Fishman karate. It really seems to depend on the Fishmen themselves though. Like once they get to a certain level, like I'm sure there's like the basics, like that like 100 brick fists, that might be like the basics of learning it, but after you get to a certain point, you can kind of develop your own techniques. For example, I remember Karubi, he had a technique that was very indicative of just him, because he had that really long ponytail, and he was like smacking Sanji around with it and like trapping him with his hair. That's obviously not something that every Fishman can do, because you have to have like a certain length of hair, and you probably have to go through a certain training regimen with that, so he called that a Fishman karate technique. Also, keep in mind, this was like really early on in One Piece, so Oda knew what he was probably going to do with it, but he might have just not have been set on exactly what the range or purview of Fishman karate was yet. But Karubi did have a few unique techniques like that. Jinbei's moves mostly revolve around, you know, just straight up punches or utilizing shockwaves in some way, shape, or form. Like we talked about that technique at Impel Down. I believe that was the true tile striking fist is what it was called. And then that's when he just punched the air, and it's a little bit more exaggerated in the anime, I think. The anime kind of drones on that scene a lot longer than in the manga. There is a delay, but it's not as bad as in the anime. In the anime, I think the delay is like close to like a minute or something. It takes a really long time where all of the soldiers, the Impel Down guards, are just standing still before they get hit. In the manga, I think it's just like he punches the air and just looks really serious, like he's really focusing his might there, and just, whoo! The guards are like, what the hell? What's going on? What's going on? And then they just get knocked away. So there is a few second delay with that, okay? But it's utilizing shockwaves. Later on during Fishman Island, Jinbe explains the mechanism of Fishman karate to Luffy, because they have that little scuffle there in the sea forest, and Jinbe's attacks are actually doing damage to Luffy, who's made out of rubber. And, you know, he's not using hockey or anything like that, or sea prism, so Luffy's like, what's the deal? And Jinbe explains that Fishman karate utilizes the water. Not just the water like surroundingly, you don't have to be in the water to use it. You can, of course, that it augments its power, but just the water in any living thing can be affected by it. So what Jinbe is actually doing is when he punches the air, that sends out shockwaves, and whenever it hits a body of water, like literally somebody that has a body and there's water inside of it, like, you know, humans, you know, mostly made of water here, when that hits you, that shockwave just like concusses you from the inside out and just knocks you back or knocks you down. Now, if this was a normal human, you'd be probably knocked out or killed right away by something like that. This is Luffy we're talking about here. So, I am honestly, though, a little bit confused of how it still hurt him, because all of Luffy's body's made of rubber. His skin, his muscles, his bones, his blood vessels, we all know this stuff because we've seen that with Gear 2nd and 3rd and 4th. So, yeah, I'm sure Jinbe's shockwave could, like, you know, resonate inside of Luffy, but I don't think it would actually hurt him. Maybe it just, like, it can knock him back and maybe make him rattled a little bit. Maybe something like that would make sense, but causing any serious damage doesn't make sense. I think that would, like, if that was the case, if just, like, the water inside of him would just be knocking around, or, hey, well, actually, you know what? that might actually work, because you'd figure if Jinbe launched a strong enough shockwave and it hit the water and it forced the water out, like it hits one of your blood vessels, and then like the pressure is so intense, the pressure, it just like knocks the blood and the water like straight out of your body, like punching holes in your flesh. We didn't see Jinbe do that when he was fighting Luffy, because he wasn't actually trying to hurt him, but you'd figure if that's the mechanics of the shockwaves and stuff, if Jinbe was like really close to you and he was really mad and he just like slam that into you, he probably could cause like ruptures and holes like in your blood vessels and your flesh. So yeah, I can imagine it hurt. I'm just saying, I'm thinking Luffy probably does more damage to himself just by blowing into his bones and his like muscles and stuff, going into gear 3rd and 4th, right? So that's the basics of the technique. There's a much more like, you know, powerful move there. It's Gyojin Karate Ogi. It's his secret technique. Probably the strongest technique Jinbe has in his arsenal from what we've seen so far. And that, of course, is the Vagabond Drill. I love the name of that, so I'm going to say it again. Vagabond Drill! So that's the technique he used to deflate Watatsume, who was like this huge, increased in size blowfish that was like even bigger than like, not quite as big, because like Fishman Island is pretty huge, but bigger than the Kraken, certainly, and he just keeps inflating, and then Jinbe just slams his fist right into him, and it causes these ripples, and then literally punches a hole through the other side of Watatsume, and he deflates like a giant balloon. And then later he tries the same thing against Big Mom, who also is a character that was referred to as a balloon, an iron balloon. So I guess the goal here is like any character that claims to be a giant balloon in some way, shape, or form, Jinbe has to punch right in the stomach. Alright, so Big Mom crashes down on the Sunny, and keep in mind, Big Mom, I believe at this point, she lost a little weight. She wasn't all skin and bones, but she lost a little bit of fat there at that point. And Jinbe's like, hold on, we might have to abandon the Sunny. We'll see if this works or not. And it's like, okay, here we go, Vagabond Drill, and just boom, right into Big Mom's rolls. And boy, do they roll. It's just like, and then it knocks her right off the side of the Sunny into the water. I believe Prometheus catches her, so she doesn't, like, fall in the ocean. But still, it's like, that was Jinbe's strongest move. It didn't do the same thing it did with Watatsume. It didn't, like, launch a hole outside of Big Mom's backside, and, like, it didn't just punch a hole straight through her like he did with Watatsume. But still, this was a Yonko we're talking about in a giant cake frenzy, and one solid punch from Jinbe was enough to send her flying back a decent way. Alright, that can't be looked over. That is a pretty strong move there. You can also augment it with Haki. His technique with armament Haki, he calls it shark skin, because he is a whale shark fishman. Makes sense there. So it goes, you know, shark skin, and then he can, you know, just use his regular karate techniques just with Haki. They pack a lot more punch there, and obviously, I mean, he can always hurt devil fruit users, like as he stated with Luffy, but with this technique, at least it causes more damage. I'm actually curious how that shockwave move would work with a Logia, because if he used that technique without Haki against Crocodile or Ace, because he did fight Ace at one point, their fight actually lasted like a long time. It lasted like several days. They were brawling out on that island before they both collapsed. But you'd think the shockwave move wouldn't work there if you like tried to shockwave punch Ace. Ace could just turn into fire, so there's no more moisture there. He's literally fire, the elements. So the shockwave would still hit the fire and like flare it around, but it really wouldn't cause that much damage. So maybe Jinbe's like the Fishman Karate, it can affect devil fruit users like very specifically, like Luffy, who's made of rubber already. Is like, that doesn't matter. I could still knock you around, or I could still cause shockwaves inside of you. But unless you add Haki to that, I don't see that affecting Logias, because then they would just turn into their element and evade the attack. Even with like Aokiji, who literally becomes ice, which is water. Wait, hold on. Is ice water? Wait a second. Hold on. I have a book on this. Give me a second. Okay. Yeah, ice is water. Okay, cool. But yeah, you know, he turns into an ice statue. All that would do is cause the ice to begin to crack apart and then fall down, and then that would be it. Okay, so I don't think Aokiji would be hurt by that at all unless Jinbe added Haki to it. Okay, so that's Fishman Karate. All right, now what about Fishman Jujutsu or Jiu-jitsu? Okay, it's the same basic thing here. As I said, I didn't practice any martial arts growing up, so I just had to give myself a crash course in this. What's the difference difference between karate and jujitsu. By the way, the only karate I know about is SpongeBob, hence why I call it karate, alright? So SpongeBob taught me, as much as he could, I learned a little bit more from Sandy, but you know what I mean, like, that's all I got to go on here. So from what I understand, karate focuses on a much more, like, a standing position when you're, like, defending yourself, and jujitsu is a lot more, like, techniques when you're, like, grappling on the ground. Like, how to counter attacks when you're on the ground, how to, catch something when you're on the ground, how to attack your opponent when you're on the ground, stuff like that. Like I said, crash course here. I'm sure people that have practiced, I am confident, that's the great thing about having a large audience, I am confident that no matter what subject matter I discuss, there is somebody out there that's like, Tekking, I got your back. I've been practicing jujitsu for the last 12 years. I could bring you up to speed on this. So I'm sure you'll confirm it there. But at least in the case with Fishman in One Piece, Fishman karate can be done on the surface or in the water, okay? Because Fishmen are naturals in the water. They can move around they can move around better underwater than they can on land. Fishman jujitsu can only be done underwater. And these are the techniques that Jinbe utilizes to actually manipulate the water. Kind of like he has hydrokinesis in a sense, where he can jump in the water, and this is when he used a water heart, which is probably my favorite technique he has just because of the name. I really like it. Water heart! And so he, like, literally they seem like they're grabbing the currents of the ocean and bending them to their own will. That's Fishman Jiu-Jitsu. So he's combining this, like, water current together and, like, focusing it all down here, and then he could just, like, boom! Fire it off like a freaking ki blast, like a kamehameha, and he could, fire it off like a spear through the air, like, so he did that when they were leaving Impel Down. He did that to take out one of the battleships. He went under the water, took all the ocean currents, and then fired off these, like, water spear missiles out of the ocean and attacking the ship. Alright, so very, very useful. There's no, like, Jinbe could easily take out an entire fleet of battleships if he wanted to, because he's way faster in the water than anything the Marines could do, like firing their cannonballs into the ocean. Like, Jinbe would be swimming circles around them, and just, like, firing off these water spears through the ocean and just piercing their boats and their sails. Like, Jinbe could just wreck an entire fleet single-handedly if he wanted to, alright? So yeah, he definitely deserves his title as a warlord, right? Alright, so anyway, though, that's what he uses there to take over one of the ships, and then they escape. Oh, by the way, this isn't something related to Fishman karate or jujitsu. This is something just related to Jinbe. It really does seem that, like, other fishmen can't even do this, but Jinbe is capable of speaking to fish and asking them for help. So kind of like how Kami, who's a mermaid, she can do it. They can communicate with fish. Jinbe's kind of unusual, where he can go underwater and he could speak to fish, like, through sonar, and he summoned those whale sharks to come and help them escape Impel Down. But that's something unrelated to the karate. That's just something that he can do, maybe because he has a really good relationship with the fish of the sea. He comes, like the mermen and the mermaids, they can, like, just do it naturally, but maybe Jinbe had to work at it. He had to sit down and be like, my only friends are fish. Come here, let me talk to you, and then they started talking, and he's like, you know what, Jinbe, you're a pretty cool guy. I'm like, thanks, I appreciate it, and they just became friends with all the fish in the sea. Okay, he's a pretty cool guy. He's the first son of the sea, he's the knight of the sea. Those are epithets he's had, so makes sense there. But yeah, other than Jinbe's water hearts techniques, we also saw Horty Jones use some Fishman Jiu-Jitsu, his Yabu-Same, when he was fighting Luffy underwater on top of the Noah. He was firing off these water bullets that became actual sharks and, like, went to attack Luffy. Kind of like, honestly, something right out of Naruto, like when Kisame was doing his, like, shark jutsu and turning the water into sharks and summoning them and attacking everybody, attacking Might Guy. Luffy, well, Luffy's elephant Gatling sort of is like Hedera, kind of like Hiradora, elephant Gatling, and that burst through it right there. We don't understand the full scope of jujitsu because it does seem like they do have, like I said, hydrokinesis. Like, it's not just moving the currents and attacking enemies with it. Like, I could understand that if you have, like, an ocean current and just by using your sheer Fishman muscle, you could grab that current and just, like, focus it somewhere else and it hits your opponent. But the crap that freaking Horty was doing was he was taking water, shaping it into the shape of a shark, complete with the fins and the teeth and the eyes, and sending them at Luffy. and the sharks were like biting him. And I get it's anime, it's all aesthetic and all that stuff, but yeah, that is basically hydrokinesis. That's what Fishman Jujutsu is. I believe there was also a move, I don't know if this was karate or jujitsu because it was done underwater. So Horty uses this against, I think one of the Neptune brothers. I think it was Mambo. You know, the guy's like, I love to Mambo. It was just like a shockwave move, but it was underwater. So when Horty used it, he just like punched the water, and the shockwave travels probably even faster underwater, and then it hit him and it knocked him down. So, you know, there's another technique there, but I don't remember if that was karate or jujitsu, because karate can be done on land or in the sea. Every time we've seen the jujitsu moves, they've always been underwater, and they've always utilized, you know, currents in some way, or changing water into a different shape or something. So that's pretty cool there. Also, the moves that Horty used against Zoro, where he was like, you know, creating that little water droplet and just firing off a bunch of those bullets in the palace, and Zoro was like blocking them like this, and they were shooting everybody else down. That's also a karate technique, just taking like the water droplet and firing them off. I believe Arlong also had a version of that as well. So yeah, that's Fishman karate there. Fishman can control the water. Just makes sense to me. Makes sense to you? Makes sense to me. So yeah, that's all about Fishman fighting styles. Now moving on to Merfolk fighting styles. Like I said, there's really not much of this, but we do know about two of them. We know about Merman combat, and we also know about Merman Jujutsu. Alright, so those are the two. And what we know about the combat, that's basically the same as Fishman Jujutsu, because it's always used underwater from what we've seen. We saw Neptune and Fukaboshi use the ultramarine technique, which is essentially the underwater Kamehameha, where, like, Neptune is huge, and Fukaboshi is as well. And they just take, like, a giant sea current, and they just, like, boom! And just, like, launch it at the opponent. Neptune used this to knock everybody out of the palace, like, a far distance away back to Fishman Island. And Fukaboshi used this against Horty, but I don't think it was effectual there. So, yeah, that's the only technique we know about in Merman combat, but I'm imagining it's the same basic techniques in hydrokinesis that the Fishmen use. It's just they might have to tweak it a little bit for the Merfolk, because they don't have legs. You know, Fishmen have legs and Merfolk do not. They just have fish tails, depending on what kind of fish they are, you know, based on there. So maybe a little bit of difference in how you learn it, but still the same basic stuff. Oh, and by the way, in case you were curious, you're probably not, but in case you were curious, the way that Fishman or Gyojin is written in Japanese, they put the kanji for fish first, and then the kanji for human. And the way that merfolk, or, you know, mermaids, mermen, they're written is reversed. So they put the kanji for human first, nin, and then they put the kanji for fish after that. So, like I said, not really something that crazy, but in case you were curious, that's the way it's written in Japanese. The other technique that they have is Jujutsu, which takes the kanji for, like, tool and fighting style. So your basic, or just style. So it's basically, you know how all the fishmen and merfolk are kind of wandering around, some of them use weapons. This is their weapon techniques. This is their martial art that utilizes all the tridents and the spears, like you saw the Ammonites use and everything, like the members of Neptune's army. That's how they utilize those techniques, like different, like, trident spins and throws and spears, like weapons that would work underwater, essentially. That's how they, you know, learn how to do that. I'm sure fishmen, same thing, they can learn how to use it as well. It's just, maybe fishmen, they have a little bit more maneuverability just because they have legs, so they don't rely on it too much. Oh, speaking of legs, those brick fists, those also work with kicks, because I believe Jinbe also had a technique that was like 7,000 brick roundhouse kick or something. Because as we learned from Toriko, legs are about 3 to 4 times stronger than your arms. So, you know, Jinbe doesn't skip leg day, certainly. He could just bust out that roundhouse Chuck Norris kick and just level an entire skyscraper, alright? Pretty damn cool, right? So, a little other trivia fact here. Out of all the people that have utilized Fishman Karate, I mean, there's been a lot of people throughout the years. We've seen Arlong, we've seen Karubi, we've seen Jinbe, we've seen Horty Jones. We also saw Hack, which, by the way, I've already did a video on Koala, and I did a video on Sabo, so some people were curious, are you gonna do a video on Hack? Because he's also kind of a member of their group. He's kind of an important character. You know what, Hack? This is the closest thing you're gonna get to a video, so soak it up, buddy. Get it? Soak it up, because he's a fish. But it's just like, yeah, it's just like, I'm not gonna do a video on Hack. I don't got much stuff to say about Hack. I'm sorry. But, you know, he is a practitioner of Fishman karate. He would have gotten a lot further in the tournament if it wasn't for Bartolomeo there. I did feel a little bad for him, because he was like, you know, training in the art of Fishman karate. Like, he had to discipline himself his entire life. He was a black belt in it. Yeah, Fishman karate, they also have like ranks or dans the same as in real life, so there's like different colored belts you have, right? So, you know, he's trained his whole life in this fighting style, and he's very respectful to his opponents and everything, but then he goes up against Bartolomeo, who's this rude and crude dude, picking his nose, pissing off the side of the arena, and Hack is like, I will teach this ruffian a lesson about true martial arts. Broke his freaking wrist punching Bartolomeo. I went to the county fair yesterday, hence why I have this mark on me. Don't you think, like, I was like, what's going on with that? He was like, no, that's just something, that's my curse mark, but no, I'm good. So yeah, he broke his wrist fighting against Bartolomeo, and then he got knocked out of the arena, so that was unfortunate. I did feel bad for Hack a little bit there, but beyond that, I don't got much about Hack. But you know who I do have to talk about is Koala, because Koala, she has Fishman karate skills as well, despite being full human. I mean, yes, she did travel with Fisher Tiger and everybody growing up, so she was around Fishman, and then something happened. We don't actually know how she went back over to the Revolutionary Army's side. We know that Fisher Tiger returned her to her home, and then this was the same place Fisher Tiger was captured, and then he died shortly thereafter that. But we don't know the turn of events that led to Koala growing up in this. She was home. She was in her home village, but she still grew up and then left that village to go into the Revolutionary Army. So she probably found out about what happened to Fisher Tiger, about what the government did and the government, how they view fishmen and merfolk and everything. And she was just like, you know what? I need to go and fight for this cause. And then she, you know, met Hack, and I'm sure Hack was the one that taught her Fishman karate. So even though she is a human, she can utilize it. Now, I don't think she could utilize jujitsu. I don't think she could utilize, you know, water hard and controlling like the powers of the sea together. I think there are limits. But when it comes to just the basic skills and punches, they're probably not as strong. I don't think Koala could pull off like the vagabond drill or the 5,000 brick fist or something. But, you know, she certainly has skills. I mean, very large skills, in fact. Skills that could just knock anybody out just if she turns... Okay, I'm sorry. She is a very skilled and respectful martial artist, okay? Cool. Alright, so yeah, humans can learn it too. It's just probably when you get to the hydrokinesis stuff, leave that to the experts, okay? I don't know, maybe it's like it is basically waterbending, if we're being honest here. That Jinbe is a straight-up waterbender. I mean, from what we've seen with, like, him controlling the currents and everything, and, like, the shock waves that damage you from the inside out from the water in your body, I mean, I'm sure Jinbe couldn't do, like, straight-up blood-bending or something, but... maybe he could, I don't know, but, you know, it is like a level of waterbending to a sense. Yes, it is. Ah, man, have we seen Fishman karate and jujitsu being utilized with ice? Oh man, that would be a kind of cool extension. If Jinbe, I mean, he couldn't make the ice himself, but if he came across ice in the ocean, like a frozen lake, could he, like, use the ice shards to, like, ooh, you know, Fishman karate, you know, swordfish nail, frozen swordfish nail, and then fires off the piece of ice at the enemy or something. I don't know if he could do that. Probably not, but it's cool to theorize, right? So anyway, yeah, that's just an introduction into Gyojin karate and jujitsu and a little bit of the merfolk techniques we've seen. Haven't really seen much from them, but probably going to see more in the future. And Jinbe, whenever he arrives back at Wano, I'm sure we're going to see a plethora of new Fishman karate moves. He might possibly only have one eye by then, but we'll see where that goes. Let me know what your favorite technique is below. Thanks everybody for watching. This will be Tekking101 staring at Koala's boobs, signing out. Holy crap. Did you guys know that hydrogen is an element? Hydrogen. Hydrogenerated. I'm learning so much today.